Hey everybody, what up? How we all doing tonight? Let's see who we got here in the chat. Cool Hand Luke. Hey Sherry. Hi Eric. Amy's here. Hi Gene. Hi Gene and Daryl. Good. It's Good Friday, but Easter is coming. You know it. Let's see here. Dave Jessen. Appreciate you being out here tonight. Hi April. Teresa Bitters is here. Angie Myers. Hi Cheryl. Hi Daryl. Hey Candy and Tim. Hey Audra. Dennis and Trent are here. Hi, Kim. Margie Whitling. Hi, Doug. Quinn Luke in the house. Hello, Joyce. And Mr. Joe Sutton himself is here. Hi, Parker. We'll give everybody a chance to log in here tonight. I had a very interesting day today. I'm going to share a little bit with you here tonight. Kind of an odd day all the way around, but I think every day is an odd day anymore. Hey, Mark. Welcome. Give everybody a chance to jump in here real quick. Hi, Janine. Okay. Well, I had a very odd day today. While waiting for the last couple people here to log in, I'd like to share a little bit of that with you. Today must have been the day of everybody was concerned about me. I don't know if I worried you guys last night or what was going on, but everybody was concerned about me today, which I always appreciate. I got Cool Hand Luke sent me a video file and sang me a song. That was super cool. I had some, hey, Linda, I got a whole bunch of mail today, like snail mail, and people sending me stuff, which was really cool. I had a dear friend of mine drop me off some cupcakes at my house, which was awesome. And, it just, I had a nice phone call from another friend of mine, somebody looking out for me. So I appreciate that. And it's interesting that all that happened because something else that happened today, apparently COVID-19 has not done away with people's desire to send hate mail. I got some of that today too. So to all of you who are concerned that, I'm leading the world off the edge or something, I apologize for that. But got a very interesting letter from a very disgruntled person who didn't bother to sign their name. So it was like the best of times, the worst of times. But man, those cupcakes were sure good, so I appreciate that. But I don't know, life is funny that way. But I will say that the hate mail gave me a good laugh. It was really a good one. So thank the person who sent it. I'm sure is not here, but I really appreciated their effort. I got a great laugh out of it today. So awesome. So it was a good day all the way around. I want to say also that I dropped off a thumb drive to Josh Barnes about a little over 2 hours ago, and gave him actually about an hour and a half ago. Sorry, it's about an hour and a half ago, and gave him the stuff for Sunday. So it's all there, and links for Sunday morning will be coming out probably around lunchtime or maybe a little later tomorrow, depending on how fast YouTube is allowing things to upload. So be watching for those tomorrow. We'll be sending out links. I've seen a snippet, and I know I've been harping on this all week, but I've seen a snippet of what the band did. Gosh, it's awesome. I'm excited for both services, as I always am. So I don't want to put one over the other, but you're going to see the band do something tomorrow that maybe some of you have seen it before. I never have, and I am really looking forward to that. I also tried to do some different things with the sermon this week. We're all kind of in this learning phase of what it means to do stuff online. And I guess I'm in on that. So, so the sermon's going to, it's a sermon, but it's going to look a little different this week. Cause I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I'm getting a little better at this. So hopefully it will be something that will be a little easier to follow than some of the other stuff we've done. So we'll see how that works out, but, yeah, cool. So, hi, Jess. Hope things are going well for you. Hey, Jack and Cheryl, appreciate you guys coming out. Jack, I got letters from Jack, not hate mail, just so y'all know. But I did get letters from Jack. Jack, I appreciate that. You're really giving a lot of thought to this prayer thing, which I love. And I appreciate the discontented may be with us. Did we just get a thumbs down? So perhaps the discontented person is here. Who knows? So that's cool. Welcome, discontented person. I hope that you can feel better with life. So all's good at Lowe's. Glad to hear that, Jess. Hopefully things are going well there. Oh, Eric, you saw the children's video today? Yeah. We had talked about making that be a part of Sunday, and we ended up making it be. Hold on here. We ended up making that be its own thing because so we originally talked about possibly doing that as a part of a children's sermon on Sunday, but I made the decision that it's probably not going to work out. So now that's its own video and something you guys can. My stupid phone. Something you guys can enjoy. So we did get a thumbs down. Dang, that didn't take long. So all right, hi Cheryl and Bill. Hey Nicole, appreciate you coming out and being here. You're a little late, but you haven't missed anything yet. So Joe Sutton, Mr. Angel Face himself. And all right, cool. Oh, Eli watched the video. Eli is Teresa's grandson, and I'm glad he saw that. Did he stay clear through the end? Because there were some outtakes. Apparently, Eric did. Good. There were some outtakes, and I actually bled on some of those outtakes, so you definitely don't want to miss that. So, all right, fantastic. All right, good. Well, I'm glad you guys enjoyed those. I had a blast doing that. It was a good time. So appreciate you guys coming out for that. All right. Good. Well, glory to God is chapter 3.3. That's where we are tonight. Oh, Teresa, you got to watch clear through the end of the video. It's a bunch of hijinks takes place. All right. Crystal saw him. Thanks, guys. All right. Hey, let's get serious now. We're heading on to chapter 3.3. Glory to God. And we're going to continue talking about God saying, send me. So here we are in the first page. The first sentence says, let's be honest. Telling God you'll do whatever he wants you to do is scary. Do any of you even know anybody in your life, anybody from your family, that you would be willing to go and just do whatever they tell you to do? I don't know if I have anybody like that in my life. I'm curious if any of you think that you do. Interested in knowing about that, because that's a terrifying proposition. I mean, that is trust on an incredible level to be able to allow somebody to be the boss, because nobody's interested in that. So Kim apparently agrees with me. Not too many people would be willing to say that about them. So good. So he's talking here at the beginning of the chapter when he kind of makes some observations about giving somebody that much power in your life and being willing to let them be boss, so to speak. And he mentions a couple things up here in front. He says, I remember talking with my friends about this kind of availability when I was in a church youth group as a teenager. I mean, that's a pretty deep conversation for youth group, really. But and they weren't real real hip on doing that, because they were concerned, as I think all of us would be, as to what exactly God would ask us to do. And here's a couple of examples, which I'm going to throw these examples out there that he gives, and we can hash them out. It says, one of my buddies was convinced that God would send him to Africa as a missionary, where he'd go broke, never see electricity again, and have to go to the bathroom in a hole in the ground. I mean, if that's where God calls you, that's what's going to happen. I grew up in a church with Tom and Sharon Crow. If any of you know those names, they were missionaries in Africa, and they did this. And I grew up in the pew behind them, and they spent a lot of years in Africa. Saved, I mean, I can't even tell you how many lives. The size of the village, Niembo and Pungu, where they lived, tripled in size during the time that they were there. And we flew in on an airplane and landed on just this bare strip of land that was cut out of the jungle, and it was interesting to see all that. So yeah, God's call can do that. But they were really happy there and really made an excellent contribution. So that's the first person was concerned about leaving their culture, leaving what's familiar, going to Africa. They're afraid that's what God would ask. I don't know. I mean, that sounds legitimate. We know people that's happened to. Okay. Oh, Cheryl. Yes, you know Tom and Sharon Crow. Yep. I know them personally. They're friends of my parents. I was in Africa to visit them in 1996 when they were there. They're no longer there, and that was a cool thing. So, all right. So that's the first person concerned about being sent to Africa. But the next person has a concern that I read this and went, okay. I'm just going to read it straight to you. Another guy just knew he'd have to marry some Christian girl that he found unattractive. Are we comparing that to living in Africa and going to the bathroom in a hole in the ground? I mean, are we really are we equating those two? And secondly, are Christian women not attractive? I'm not sure how to interpret that. Ladies, I don't know if you should be offended by this guy. Maybe we should cancel him or something. But I found that to be off the wall. I'm sure there are plenty of attractive Christian women out there, but apparently this guy didn't think he was going to find one. So, yeah, that's two pretty big extremes. So, the interesting thing is, okay, so you got the first guy who's worried about going to Africa. The second guy is worried about having to marry somebody who is not attractive. The third guy was Craig, and Craig was worried God would call him to become a pastor, which makes me wonder if the second guy married an ugly wife. I don't know. I'm not sure how to take that, but he did become a pastor, and I'm sure that he doesn't regret that. Now, here's the question I want to ask about this, and I know I've made fun of this, but the question I want to ask in relation to this is, how does this attitude, which is far more prevalent than we think about, we think that God is a buzzkill or God is a joy kill. And, everything that's good in life, God ain't gonna have that. I can remember, I don't know how many of you who may be in my generation maybe remember a Christian comedian named Mike Warnke. Mike Warnke was a funny guy. And he was telling a story about, it was some little girl he knew. I don't know if it was his niece or maybe his daughter or something. And the little girl was too young to read. And I remember her telling this story, and I remember seeing this on a video when I was like in junior high or something. But this always stuck with me. He says, yeah, she was on sitting on the floor, and she happened to have a Bible there, and she was pretending like she could read. Now, obviously, she was too young to read, but she was pretending, as sometimes kids will do. And so what she was doing was she was taking the Bible. Here, I'm going to pull out this book because the only one I have happens to be my church directory. And she was flipping through it like this, pretending like she was reading it, because this is how people read. They read this fast. So she was flipping it through, and she was going like this. And Jesus said, no, 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 no. And Jesus said, no, 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 no. And that's how she was pretending to be reading. Is that all God does? Oh, you like that? That's got to go. Or you get some fulfillment out of that. That can't happen. Or, I mean, what does that say about our view of God? All he wants to do is run around and squash dreams and crush hopes. And I mean, there are legitimately people, and I've been through phases in my life where I thought that. But what does that say about our view of what God does? I mean, sometimes, in the movie Bruce Almighty, Bruce talks about how God is a mean kid with a magnifying glass, and I am the ant, where he's got to burn it off my feelers and stuff. I think that this attitude is prevalent. That people think that that's how God works, is find things you like and, well, take that stuff away from you. And I've heard many ministers preach that sermon. Well, if you like that, you got to stop. And look, there are some things we can indulge in that are bad. Okay, no argument for me on that one. But that doesn't mean that everything's good is bad. That may be the dumbest sentence I ever said, but you understand what I'm saying. It doesn't mean that everything that you enjoy has to go, and if you enjoy it, you have to stop. I just, you can't indulge. That's a problem. But and obviously, if you like something that's destructive, yeah, that's probably going to have to go. But that doesn't mean everything that you enjoy has to go. I mean, it's not like God is like COVID-19, where you got to cancel the whole world because of this problem. I don't know if that's that way. Oh my gosh, a whole bunch of chat stuff. I must have been on a hiccup here because a whole bunch of chat stuff just jumped up. All women are beautiful, Amy. Absolutely correct. Every single one of them, without exception. Mark, ouch, kind of how that works. I'm assuming that's from the preacher reference. Yeah. Joyce agrees with Amy. Jesus liked to have a good time. Look, Jesus had to be a charismatic person. I don't care how good his message was. If he couldn't engage a crowd, and I don't necessarily mean entertain them, but engage them. If he couldn't draw them into him talking and draw them into whatever experience he was taking, I don't care how good his message was, he'd had 0 followers. So somehow he must have figured out how to be engaging in whatever way was meaningful to his culture, or else his message was going nowhere. So yes, I agree. Jesus, he had to have a good time. Little kids might think that's all their parents ever say. I was a little kid once, and that's all I thought my parents knew how to say. I have no idea why I couldn't stick scissors in light sockets and why I couldn't play in traffic. I never understood that. And maybe people like the wrong things. Yeah, I mean, I'm not denying that that's an issue, Gene. No question. But that doesn't mean that just because we like it, it's got to go. Childish ideas about God are different than childlike faith. Yes, it is, Teresa. Those things are actually polar opposite things. Exactly. Kim Kill, we want what we want, not always what God wants us to do. Yes, true. We have a laser-like focus on what it is that we want, and we don't often like to look away from it, and that can be a problem. Again, not denying any of that. But I don't want to see God as like I want to fight against the idea that God is like the cosmic buzzkill. I just don't see God being that way. I mean, I think that God created a lot of stuff in this world for us to enjoy. The weather today notwithstanding, the weather a couple of days ago, I enjoyed that a lot. Now, for some reason, winter came back, and I'm wearing a flannel shirt here tonight. I'm real not excited about that, but here we are. And I think that, there's a lot of things out there that we enjoy that are good for us, and God created them for us to enjoy. I love being outside, and I love, doing things outside and running and doing stuff in my yard and turning, rolling my tire around my yard, which I haven't been able to do yet. And that's kind of ticking me off. But, within reason, I don't think there's anything wrong with any of that. So a couple miracles get attention. That's true. That's true. And that's called engagement, Mark. And that's exactly how he got it to work. And Gene Smith is giving Teresa a thumbs up. And yep, we're all on the same page on that one. But that's what I don't want you to see. And it's particularly since we've had 2 weeks of this prayer cycle now. The first week was about God searching us. The second week was about God breaking us. Most of us are going to say that sounds unpleasant. And I don't want prayer to become like going to the dentist or something like that. I don't want it to be like that. That God is going to do nothing but figure out what you don't want and make you do that. I just don't. God pushes us out of our comfort zones and pushes back. Sure, all that, yes. But I don't want the idea to become that God is just about making us unhappy. And as I was sharing, I had a lot of experiences today. I probably had more interaction with people today than I have in quite a while because people were calling and dropping stuff off and things. And I really appreciate that. And, it was a good day. And even with some of the other things that happened, it was still a good day. And we don't want to focus on just what's wrong. So one of the questions he asked here after he was afraid that God would ask him to be a minister, This is straight from Craig, so I'm just going to ask it straight in his words. He says, how can you just do whatever God wants? It's a pretty straightforward question. How can you do whatever God wants? I think the fact that that word starts with how rather than why is an interesting one. But how can you just do whatever God wants? You know, it's about yielding your life. I think yesterday a whole bunch of you came up with one of the questions I asked, came up with the word surrender. It's exactly what it is. Christianity and the way God works things, it is often the opposite of the way we expect them to work. We think that, the best thing we could do to experience happiness in this life is to be in control of everything. Yet, what does God say? Put me in control, you're going to be happier. And we all know that to be true because we've all been on both sides of that argument. We have been on the, I'm going to run the show and run this thing into the ground. And we've also let go and let God and found out that there's a lot of blessing in that as well. So how can we do that? We do that by the W word we talked about last night, willing. God isn't looking for perfect. He's looking for willing. And that's what the whole phase 3 of the prayer cycle is all about. It's about being willing to go. I mean, and friends, let's not think that God didn't have a plan here tonight. I'm sitting here telling you that you'll live your best life if you let go and let God, put God in charge. It's no coincidence that the pastor is saying this to you on Good Friday of all days. Because if there's ever been a day of the year where we're going to focus on God being God, doing God's stuff, how about Good Friday? And look, even Jesus himself was like, God, Dad, I'd really rather go another way about this. But Jesus was able to endure. And because he was able to endure, he now has a name above every other name. That is, at the mention of his name, every knee shall bow, every tongue confess Jesus Christ is Lord, just like Paul says in Philippians. And that is a pretty incredible promotion. I think you all would agree. But that only happens because Jesus did what God wanted. And there was, without a doubt, a price to be paid in that. But in paying that price, Jesus was glorified. That's how we can do whatever God wants, is we trust him. And I'm going to be the first one to tell you, and I know there are many of you in this chat room right now who know this a lot better than me, but there are a lot of times that trust is pretty frightening. So, all right. So, one of the things that he says in the next paragraph after he asked that question is he says, praying a dangerous prayer of submission, which in and of itself is not an easy thing to do. You are especially not going to do that if you lack two things. Two things you lack, you will not do it. And he says, trust and reverence. Trust and reverence. All right, I'm letting the chat line go quiet here a little bit, so I'm going to make you guys type a little bit. Trust, I think we all get. It means I'm going to, put faith in you and allow you to do something because of who you are. That's what it means to trust. How about reverence? Somebody jump in the chat. Define the word reverence for me, because I think trust, we use that word enough. I think we all get that one. Define reverence for me. What is reverence? What is reverence? Who's got a definition for reverence? Okay. Candy and Crystal both use the word respect. I would certainly think that's a big part of it. Respect, I think, okay, we got more respect and honor, which I think those are just interchangeable, the same word, basically. Very good. It's about identifying who boy, and you guys are tearing this up. All this respect coming out, and that's what it is. So trusting and respecting. Let's use the word respect since we don't use reverence very much. I think we all get the idea. Okay, more respect. Good job, guys. And that's what it is. It's about, and respect is about identifying who a person is about. I'm trying. I got a thought here. I'm trying to get it to my mouth. Uh, Respect is about correctly identifying who a person is. That's respect. It has to do with realizing who that person. Yeah, Teresa, realizing who that person is and submitting to their authority. You got it, Joe. It's about understanding a person. That's how you respect them. And respect is going to mean different things to different people. I'm obviously going to respect, a great world leader. I'm going to show that person a different kind of respect than I'm going to show, one of you in the chat room if I was going to run into you on the street. Respect is going to be different in those things. The president can say, or the governor of Ohio can say, we're going to quarantine, and okay, we're going to shut things down. One of you could have called me up and said, "Hey, Pastor Tim, I think we need to quarantine the church," and I'd be like, "Well, I'm glad you think that," and probably not done it. So, and I don't mean any disrespect by that, but it's about understanding the person's position that they have. You guys are so just ridiculously gracious to me about showing me respect because of the position I hold here at Wayne Street, and I appreciate that. And you don't give me too much. Should I be able to speak on things of authority, speak with authority on scriptural issues? Yes, I think I should be allowed that respect. However, if one of you call me up and say, "Hey, I think my carburetor on my car is not working," I would highly advise you not respect anything I say about that because I don't know what a carburetor even does, to be honest with you. And please don't write it in the chat because I don't care. But the idea is there are certain things around you don't want to take my word for. If you have a discrepancy as to whether Superman or the Hulk is stronger, you better take my word for that one. But if we're talking about, what's the best Disney Pixar movie, I probably haven't seen any of them, or too many of them. So probably not the person to ask. So again, and we all understand that about each other. It's about getting to know somebody. You can show them respect in the proper way by understanding who they are, get to know them. And I know that this is nothing new in modern times, but respect has always been a big deal. And showing value to somebody, as Linda says, has always been a big deal. Everybody wants to be respected properly, and some people want it without earning it, and that don't work. But on the other hand, everybody does deserve the level of respect that they've earned. I hope that by now I've earned a place to be able to speak to you, on issues of faith, issues of scripture, issues of crisis. I hope I've earned the right to have something to say about that. I hope, and maybe I haven't, but it is my hope that I have been able to earn that. But I think I have a reasonable expectation that I probably have earned something in that regard. But I have done nothing to earn, to be able to help you draft your fantasy baseball team. I know nothing about that. So, and that's what it means, respect. If you come to me and say, I'm only going to draft the players for my fantasy baseball team that you tell me to draft, I'm going to say, I don't deserve that respect and you're strange for giving it to me. But if you come to me and say, I don't care what your opinion of, the differences in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, I don't think you have anything to say about that. You're entirely wrong. I have lots to say about that. I wrote an entire thesis on that. So it's all about, what respect I have earned. And that has to be earned. If I come here and I never, ever preached a sermon that had anything to do with the scriptures, I'm not earning any credence in that area. And I'm not earning any respect in that area. And sometimes we have to think that out. I know there are some people who, if the pastor of their church put a video on YouTube where he was wrecking his bike and almost ran over the camera with his bike, would think, what the heck is this guy doing? But I feel like it's important, especially during times like this, that we poke a little fun at ourselves. There's so much serious stuff going on. Let's laugh a little bit. And if I can have a big gash in my leg from a fence falling on me, so be it. And so that's just how it is. It's how respect is earned. And and that's what it is. The problem is, though, sometimes we won't allow people, or I don't mean people, we won't allow anybody that latitude at all. Meaning, under no circumstances could they ever earn respect. And that's a big problem because if due to the fact that something has happened, you've been wounded by somebody, you've been emotionally scarred by something, bad experiences, whatever, that doesn't matter what anybody does, you're never going to respect anybody. Or if you feel God has dropped the ball enough times that you're not willing to do that, chances are the thought of saying, God, I'll do whatever you say, is something you would laugh at. Because under no circumstances is anybody getting that level of trust and respect. And that's an interesting thing. Candy is asking me who is stronger. I'm assuming that's between the Hulk and Superman argument. The answer is obviously Superman, because he is an alien, where Hulk is only radioactivity created him. He's from this planet, so Superman is stronger. So fight away in the comments if you see fit. So, all right, let's move on here. All right, so trust and reverence for God. It's going to be part of my Good Friday challenge for you guys tonight. When we kind of get to the end, and we're going to do a little reflection on Good Friday before we sign off here tonight. Are you willing? The word is not able. The word is willing. Are you willing to give trust and respect to God? And we're going to, that's going to be our question. Or one question that we're going to be reflecting on for our Good Friday time. And Joyce, is it possible to love someone you do not respect? No, it is not. No, it's not. And the reason I say no is because, even if you're talking about, me loving my 5-year-old nephew, I love that little guy to death. And it's because I respect who he is. Meaning, I don't have deep theological conversations with him. We normally, as I mentioned in the sermon a few weeks ago, talk about farting more than anything else. And he always comes over and he wants me to chase him around. And normally I grab him and carry him upside down. And the first thing he says when I grab him and turn him upside down is he says, "Are you going to flush me down the toilet?" That's what he always says. He thinks that's the funniest thing. And we play games and all this stuff. And I love chasing him around. And I have a great deal of respect for him because he's 5. And I respect him as a 5-year-old. If he was 25 and wanted me to flip him upside down, I'm like, my vertebrae are not going to do that, pal. But big as he is now, I can barely do that now. But the idea is I respect who he is. I love him for who he is. I love him exactly as he is. I'm looking forward to seeing him grow up and go, eat running backs for lunch, because that's what he's going to end up doing. But I believe that I respect who he is. Meaning, if he comes to me and says something, I'm going to listen to him. Now, he can come and make a compelling argument about why I should allow him to play in traffic, and he's never going to win that argument. But he may come to me and say, my belly hurts, and I'm going to make a concerted effort and see what it is. Now, he may be goofing around or whatever, but I'm going to listen to him because I respect who he is. And anytime you're in a relationship with somebody and they're not willing to embrace who you are, they do not love you. They are using you. That is a 100% guarantee. And if who you are, that doesn't mean that they can't expect you to grow. That doesn't mean that they can't forgive you for mistakes. That doesn't mean you can't make mistakes. What that means is there is something inherent about you that other person, and again, this doesn't necessarily have to be husband and wife kind of things. This can be any two people for any reason can love each other. And because I'm not equating love and sex. Let's be real clear about that. What I am equating is I'm saying, I understand who you are. That's what respect is. And I can love you. And I can love you in spite of who you are. See, Trina, let me adjust your statement here a little bit. Trina in the chat room, for any of you who can't see it, says, I have a sibling that I love, but I do not respect who she is. Let me flesh that out. What you mean is you have a sibling that you love, you do not accept who she is. Okay. And again, I know there's a whole history there that she and I've talked about that I'm not getting into here. But what she means by that is I respect what she is, meaning I understand what she is. I know what to expect from her, but I don't like it. And I don't accept that. This will happen with the people who are in a relationship with a person who may have who may be mentally ill or something like that, or may have some personality quirks, which we all have. And you're dealing with somebody. You could say I love you, but and I respect who you are. I think about this, and again, I'm getting to an extreme example here, but when there's domestic violence in a situation, you could say, I respect the situation and I love you. However, because I respect you, I know this can't go on. Isn't that more what they do rather than who they are? I think it's both. I think it's both, Teresa, because I think it's both because there's got to be something about a person that you respect before you can love them. And I think it's an inherent quality inside of a person. And that's why some people are going to get great respect. Look, I was making a funny example a little bit ago about listen to me when I speak about scripture, but don't listen to me when I speak about cars. I have people in my life and you have people in your life. I will look at them. I will know that person knows nothing about what they're talking about, but I respect them so much and I trust them so much that they tell me, you better go have your carburetor look at. We're going to the mechanic, even though I know they don't have any clue what they're talking about. And it's because I see something in them that is legitimate, that has integrity. And we can see that because respecting people is about knowing who they are, including all their positive things and all of their negative things, and we all got all that stuff. And it's a great thing to see. You can respect somebody by accepting their limitations, and you can respect somebody by loving their strengths, and their presence. I do not. And back to the original question that got us going down this is, can you love someone without respecting them? I say no. Can you treat somebody respectfully without respecting them? Yes. I mean, you don't call somebody an idiot in public discourse, unless they really earn it. And I think that's what we're getting to. Just because you don't respect somebody doesn't mean that you're allowed to go in public and humiliate them. That's not cool. But does God respect us sinners? Absolutely, because he knows exactly what we are. Especially on Good Friday, he knew what he was getting himself into. Redeeming sin was a big deal. And because he knew that part of us and respected that part of us, he knew that if he was going to get this job done, meaning bringing God and people back together, he's going to have to do it himself. But and so, yes, the word respect, if we're using the definition of I know you, then yes, God does respect us. Parker, that's a good question, buddy. Trina, I guess I can love her but not understand her. Bingo. That's it. Bingo. Yep, you got it. So, all right, we got off on a little tangent there, which is extremely cool. I love interacting with you guys. This is a blast. So, we all good? Everybody all good? We haven't lost. We're up to 36. We've actually gained a few people. I always worry when I go off on these tangents. Everybody's like, "Well, I'm done. I'm going to go watch something else." So I'm glad our numbers stayed up. So, okay. Parker says, "But he does. But does he always accept us?" Yes, yes, he does. But by accepting, I don't mean condoning. Those are two different words. Accepting means I know who you are and I love you anyways. Condoning says I know who you are and that's perfectly okay. God does not do that. God does not do that ever. Because it's always about a process of transformation. If you read the Gospels, man, Jesus spoke more about transformation than just about anything else. When he talked about giving was never to be done in order to support somebody who needed help. If you read Jesus, when he talks about giving, it's always, without exception, done to change the giver. Always. When Jesus talked about prayer was never about getting God to go do something for you. Prayer was always about transforming the person doing the praying. That's what it was always about. Read the Lord's Prayer. It's all about transforming the person doing the praying. So, yes, does he accept us? Yes, he does not condone us. He doesn't say, you guys screw up a lot, but it's okay. Nope, God don't do that. God has very high standards. He may accept us, but that doesn't mean he puts the gold star on our chest and says, go for it because you guys are great. That doesn't happen. He accepts us because he wants us to transform us. But he will only accept us if we accept him. I think I disagree with that statement in that I believe God's offer to accept us is on the table, but we can turn it down. We can deny that. It'd be like me saying, hey, Parker, you want to come over to my house and we'll have some popcorn and whatever. And you can say, no, I don't think so. I would still accept you if you would come, but if you don't come, there's no popcorn in it for you. I think God works the same way. The door's always open and he's willing to accept. But if you don't reciprocate, that acceptance doesn't mean much. It's just like the emails that we get all the time about, hey, you just won this lottery in Europe, and if you send us $1,000, we'll send you $1 million something or whatever. We say, I'm not going to accept that. Allegedly that invitation is still there, but we turn it down. Therefore, it doesn't do anything for us. Now, to be fair, it's not going to do anything for you anyways, but you're already aware of that. So God's acceptance is there, but it only works if we reciprocate. I hope that clears it up, Parker. Y'all ought to give some props to Parker. I'm telling you what, he asks me questions. He texts me questions every so often. That old boy's got a good head on his shoulders. Appreciate him a lot. He makes me work for it, and I love it. So, all right, we all good? I mean, if you want to interact, I'd much rather talk about your stuff than mine. There you go, Gene. All right, cool. So, Joyce, you couldn't be more welcome. Appreciate having you here. And I appreciate all 35 of you who are logged in right now. All right. So, it seems like a really long time ago when we were talking about this. But thanks, Eric. But let's go back here to where we are. And we got a lot more to get to. Which one of these is more interesting? All right, let's skip ahead here. I got more notes on more stuff, but no, this is more interesting. The last line, there's a paragraph here that starts with, during the time of desperation and fear, however, Isaiah wrote in the year that King Uzziah died. And in the paragraph that begins like that, the very last sentence in that paragraph says, if you're going to ask God to use you, then a genuine encounter with him goes a long way in trusting him. Again, going right on with what Parker was just saying. I mean, we're going to follow right in the footsteps of where he was going. If you're going to ask God to use you, then a genuine encounter with him goes a long way to trusting him. This is back to the acceptance thing Parker was just asking about. And that goes to say that if God says, or God offers to say, if you click on to that Wayne Street worship service on Sunday morning and you're there at 8:30 and you click on there and you hear Daryl and Gene sing and you hear Pastor Tim pray and his sermon and all these things, you're going to have a direct encounter with me. God may come along and make a promise like that to you and say, if you're there at 8:30, I'm going to show up and through this screen that we're all addicted to now, I'm going to be there and you're going to have an encounter with me. And you turn off your phone at that point and roll over and go back to sleep. That invitation does nothing. That offer to accept does nothing. And what you have just done is, you have cheated yourself out of the opportunity to have an encounter with God. And just like any other relationship that you have, if you don't make an effort to have encounters with people, I mean, look, if this COVID-19 scare has taught us anything, it's taught us this. is that relationships go cold if we don't practice them. So right now, you guys are making phone calls, and you're here tonight, interacting with me on this, and interacting with each other on this experience. If you don't take advantage and do these things, relationships dry out. There's a lot of memes going around the internet right now about COVID-19, and one of them is, hey, I was sitting in my house and I met this woman who lives at my house. Apparently, she's my wife, and she seems nice. I mean, that's not good. Because it's one of these things where you need to be able to have experiences, because that builds relationships. If you deny the experience, the relationship probably stagnates, but at the very least or very most, it stays the same. So if God is offering you the opportunity to have an experience to build your trust, if you don't take him up on that offer, if you don't walk through the invitation, nothing's going to happen. And I think that's what he's saying here. He says, if you're going to ask God to use you, the best way to learn to give him the trust and respect he needs to pull that off is to have encounters with him. It goes a long way. And if you avoid that, or don't actively pursue that, or don't respond to that when the invitation is given, that trust and respect is not going to grow like it needs to. Again, just like your relationship with any other person. If you don't make the effort to have the experiences to build up trust over time, because you see how this works, and you get to enjoy all that stuff. If you don't do that, relationships stagnate, including your relationship with God. And my prayer every day is that, since everything else in life is screwed up right now, that God will use this, weird experience that I just learned how to do to deepen your faith. And I hope that somewhere that you're not encountering this face. My hope is that you're encountering God in our discussion and God in our midst, because there are 37, if you count me, 37 of us here gathered in his name. And while we may not be gathered in the same space, we are connected in spirit. And my hope is that by having this experience, your faith grows, and that you see God working in this, not just through my mouth, but through this experience together, that your faith is growing. And I couldn't be more happy to provide that experience for you, if that's the way you want to look at it. But I'm just glad to have you all here and taking advantage of that, because if you don't click on at 8:00, it doesn't matter how good these sessions are, I'm not going to do anything for you. So very good. All right. Time. Oh my word, you guys got me way off tonight. I'm trying to find. All right, I don't know where it's at. It's in this chapter somewhere, so you're just gonna take my word for it. But this is what I want to close with, because I want to do a little Good Friday stuff with our last couple minutes. One of the things he talked about, and I had never thought of it this way before, but this passage from Isaiah 6. And if any of you want to do some extra reading when we're done here tonight or whatever, just go read Isaiah chapter 6. It's a fascinating chapter, and I sort of outlined it a little bit last night. But essentially, what happens is Isaiah is kind of out for a walk, and he ends up in God's throne room. I mean, you ever done that? You take one wrong turn, and bam, there you are. And hey, Anna Kay, welcome. And so he's in God's throne room, and he's there, and they're having this conversation, and he's like, God's like, hey, we need somebody to go do something. And Isaiah's like, woo, pick me. And everybody's like, how did the mortal get here? Anybody know how he got in here? And so he's someplace he's not supposed to be, and he volunteers. But the interesting thing about that is Isaiah gives a very specific reference as to when this happened. It was in the year King Uzziah died. Now, my knowledge of the history of all the kings, there's a lot of them in there, so I don't know all of them. But according to Craig, and I have no reason to doubt what he says, Craig says that Uzziah was a particularly popular king. Israel was really doing well during that time, and he was a beloved king, and things were good. And what Isaiah does by saying in the year that King Uzziah died, he's hi Bill, we're glad you're here too. But by saying it's in the year that King Uzziah died, he doesn't make any value statement on that. He didn't say, well, everybody was depressed because King Uzziah died, or everything was screwed up because King Uzziah died, or the whole world was terrible because King Uzziah died, and it was just in that time that I managed to have this experience. No, he just makes it as a value state, as a objective fact statement. That year, whatever year that was, I happened to be here and did this. He doesn't put any negative spin on it. And even though everybody felt pretty bad because King Uzziah was a king everyone loved. And just like today, if we had a leader that everyone loved, which regardless of your feelings, we don't have one that everybody loves. Um, a beloved leader is tough to come by. And we know that because I don't know that we've had one in my lifetime, at least not in the United States, because I was born during the Gerald Ford administration, and I can tell you that none of them have been terribly popular since then. Now we may go back and say, well, Abe Lincoln was a great leader, and he was, but let me tell you something: he was not beloved in his time. He met some serious resistance. So beloved leaders are hard to come by. And so to lose one like King Uzziah would have been a great shot. But Isaiah makes no equating. The end of that chapter is a little fire. Yes, it is, Cool Hand Luke. And but what I want you to see is Isaiah may have been sad that King Uzziah died, and he may not have been, happy he was gone, and because King Uzziah was so beloved. But Isaiah wasn't hanging his head. He wasn't depressed. He obviously was still seeking out the Lord, even though times were tough. He didn't stop. And we know that because he never would have ended up in God's throne room. And he certainly never would have been like, oh, pick me, pick me. He never would have done that if he didn't, it wasn't seeking out the Lord. And that's the only reason why that story went the way that it did, was because he was willing to seek out God, even though things were less than ideal during this time. That's a powerful statement, friends. And that's a wonderful statement of how he was classifying. That's the word I use. How he was classifying the time. He wasn't saying, he wasn't, he was sad in himself, but that sadness didn't define who he was. He was still seeking God. That's what I want to say to all of you. We need to trust and respect God. That's my profound statement for the night. But in order to do that, we're going to have to look past COVID-19 and quarantines and social distancing and an empty church on Easter, which I hate. I hate so much. But we're going to have to look by all that because there's still things going on. And if we get caught up in what's going on, if Pastor Tim can't get his head and his heart past the fact that sanctuary is going to be empty on Easter Sunday morning, I'm going to miss a blessing somewhere in here. There's a blessing coming. It's going to happen at 8:30 and 10:45 on Sunday morning, like it does every Sunday morning. It's just not going to happen here. And if I get so upset by the fact that it's going to happen somewhere but not happen here, I'm going to miss it completely. Isaiah could have missed completely what was going on here had he been at home crying about King Uzziah. But because even in the midst of the bad thing that was happening, he was still seeking God, he found him. And that's going to happen. But not if we hang our heads and say, woe is me, and I hate quarantine, and I'm sick of social distancing, and I want to go out and eat somewhere. I mean, if that we're going to focus on that, we're going to miss any potential for anything good to happen. So, and good for you, Teresa, and I know you will. So that's what I want to give you tonight. That's what really jumped out of this chapter to me. I know there's a lot of other stuff in there I didn't get to, and I'm totally cool with that. But we have a lot to be thankful for. I'm sorry about how much effort it takes me to even say that, but it's true. We serve a risen Savior who's in the world today, and I think that if we don't take time to recognize that and start worrying so much about all this other stuff that drives us crazy, there's no blessing at all. So there's a blessing available. We just need to remember how important it is to remember. Last night when we did communion, What's the big word in communion? Do this in remembrance of me. What are you going to do? And how important that is to remember. And I want you all to remember. Isaiah remembered. That's how, when he got to that place, he knew where he was. Even though he didn't belong there, shouldn't have been there, he knew where he was because he had not lost perspective, even though he was so sad about King Uzziah. So I don't want any of you to allow your sadness over COVID-19 and the risks and how many of us are not going to be able to see our families and not going to be able to go to church and not going to be able to do all this stuff. A lot of people I know today, in fact, somebody was at my house today dropping things off, and we did it in such a way that I did not see them, which I'm so sorry about, but I understand why we had to do that. But we're having to do that, leave things on doorsteps and away from the street and stuff. I'm sorry we have to do that. But my friends, if we get so focused on what we can't do, we're going to miss what we can do. And I don't want us to do that. Isaiah had a chance to completely miss this entire experience, but God moved him in a profound way to make him one of the major prophets of the Old Testament, because he didn't miss what was going on because King Uzziah had died. And I think that's a good warning for all of us. Okay. Anything else about the chapter? I have 3 minutes left. I want to spend 3 minutes, give or take, probably give, to talk about Good Friday. So if you got something else that you want to say about the chapter, or basically any other reflection you want to make, jump in the chat and do that now. I want to take just a moment and have a Good Friday talk with you here a little bit. Good Friday is one of the strangest holidays we have. I mean, really. We celebrate Christmas. We celebrate birthdays. We celebrate New Year's Day. We celebrate a lot of times that we're honoring people like President's Day and Columbus Day. We're celebrating, things like Black History Month. We celebrate, a lot of things that remember a lot of pieces of our history. Valentine's Day, we're celebrating specific people in our lives. Mother's Day, Father's Day, we're celebrating specific people in our lives. All those celebrations have a joyous component to them, except this one. We are celebrating the person who loves us more than anyone else can, will, or ever will love us, died a horrible death because we sentenced him to that. There's no holiday that has a parallel to that. Can you imagine how gruesome? I'm not even going to put an image in your head, but can you imagine how gruesome some of our holidays could be if we allow them to go to that point? We don't. But what we're celebrating is the fact that there is a God who loved us so much that Good Friday happened, and everything that means. His body was literally broken. His blood was literally shed. He was literally wrapped in cloth, and he was placed in a tomb, dead, because of sin. Capital S, sin. So, my friends, what I want you to identify is that when we do this in remembrance of him, we are remembering simple, personal greatness on his behalf. And that cannot be overstated. Easter is awesome. I think I've made a pretty compelling case. I think Easter is fantastic. But there is no Easter without Good Friday. Look, let me give you a modern parallel that some of you will get and some of you won't. So those of you who don't get this analogy I'm about to make, I apologize. But to any of you who have seen the greatest movie possibly ever made, Avengers Endgame, that movie would not, as great as that movie was, would not have been what it was without the 20-some movies leading up to that. And because of the investment we had in the characters, the investment we had in the conflict, the investment we had and the tears that we shed with those characters along the way, when it came to that last moment and Captain America said, "Avengers Assemble," I'm still getting goosebumps about that because we were invested. That's what Good Friday shows us. How invested was God in us? All in, baby, all the way. And that's what I need us to see. That's how invested God was. He was Good Friday invested. And so when Jesus was breaking the bread and sharing the cup, and he said, "Do this in remembrance of me." That's what we're remembering. Full on, all in, both feet invested. And you know, as awesome as Easter is, and as awesome as Christmas is, Good Friday is what makes both of them what they are. Jesus being born and Jesus rising from the dead is nothing without the sacrifice on the cross. No, I take that back. It's not nothing, but it certainly diminished greatly without that. So, yeah, Jesus was very invested, Joe, invested all the way in. And so that's what we're celebrating. So, what I want to invite you to, I have an invitation for what 2.5 weeks or something. We have been studying dangerous prayers. And I hope that you're saying dangerous prayers. I have noticed throughout the course of the study, my prayers have literally changed. I was leafing back through my prayer journal this morning. I was leafing through a few pages. And over this past couple of weeks, they have changed. I pray differently now. And things that are more dangerous, about putting more risk in there, about God, looking at me and breaking me, and different things like that. So now, since you have been a part of the same conversations I have been a part of, I want to invite you to something dangerous. Tomorrow is Holy Saturday. It is the day that Jesus spent in the tomb. I invite you, and again, before y'all jump on this and decide what you're going to do, I want you to hear me all the way to the end of this. I want to invite you to do something tomorrow. Whatever this is, I want you to do this in remembrance of him tomorrow. It could be fasting. And again, fasting doesn't mean staying away from all food. It could be fasting from a specific food. It could be fasting from, don't fast from social media because I want you here tomorrow night. But, it could be fasting from an event. It could be doing something. Could be contacting someone. I want to push you out of your comfort zone. Do something. Do this in remembrance of him. Jesus was all in. Show some commitment tomorrow to something. Pray about that. You've all got a little bit here before you go to bed. I want you to pray about that, and then I want you to do this in remembrance of him. And I want you to do that because I want you to show up Sunday morning for the celebration of the resurrection prepared. And you can't be prepared without doing this in remembrance of him, whatever this is. So I just have a feeling in the back of my head that God has something big planned for Sunday. So I really want you guys to show up prepared. So that's my Holy Saturday challenge to you, is do this in remembrance of him. Pick your this and do it tomorrow. So think about what your this is. And again, it doesn't have to be something crazy. It doesn't have to be something insane. I don't want you to hurt yourself. I don't want you to say that you're going to, go into the hospital and kiss all the COVID-19 patients. You're not doing that. But pick a this. Decide what this is. And then do this in remembrance of him, and do it tomorrow. Because there's a lot of preparation that could be done. And again, please hear me. It doesn't have to be something insane or off the wall. But decide something and do this in remembrance of him. And take some time. And if you guys want to, you guys all are getting to know each other. Jump in the chat. Let's talk this through. Figure out what your this is if you want. You don't have to. Or text somebody or talk to somebody who is important to you. And figure out what your this is. And do this in remembrance of him, because we could never hope to match Jesus's level of commitment. That's a ridiculous idea. But that doesn't mean we can't make an attempt. Sunday's the best day of the year. Hands down. No question about it. Best day of the year. And I want us to show up for that prepared. Okay? Y'all with me? The chat kind of died out here a little bit. You guys in? You got to do this in remembrance of him. You got to pick a this. What's your this? All right, cool. Got a couple of you here. This is how we show our commitment. This is how we get the chance to do something. All right, cool guys. Got a few of you in there. Good. So, any of you who would like to talk about your this, I would love to hear from you. Drop me a text tonight or tomorrow, whatever your heart desires, and let me know what your this is. Cool hand Luke, and that's what's supposed to happen. Sit back and reflect because y'all got a big choice to make. Your this could be something. Could be something. You know, it may be encouraging somebody. It may be calling your neighbor up to see if you can go to Kroger for them. It may be calling up somebody to go to Kroger for you because you know you shouldn't be there. Could be a lot of things. But there's a lot of despair going around right now, and we have the chance to do this in remembrance of him. And what you're going to find is it'll encourage you. And if somebody else happens to be served by what you do, it's going to serve them as well. So, yeah, I'm so excited for Sunday. I have seen some pieces of what Sunday's going to be, and you know, look, I know that this is not the Easter any of us had planned, and I know this is not the way we wanted it to be. But we're going to read a scripture passage in great respect to how weird this whole situation is. We're going to read a scripture passage on Sunday that we don't normally read on Easter. It's not coming from the Gospels. We're going to read an Old Testament story. And we're going to talk about that in light of what God is doing now. So we're going to read a passage from my good friend Job. Now, if any of you know Job's story, his story's not exactly one we would usually read on Easter. But our man Job has a word to say, and we're gonna share that. Gene, it's interesting you say that. Angie and I had that exact conversation today, and we are seeking ways to try to figure that out. No, that's not Job. That's oh, I forgot the guy's name. Somebody help me out. Who's the donkey talk to? Oh, I want to say Jabez, but I know that's not his name. Help me out. One of you Bible scholars, tell me. Who's the guy the donkey talked to? That's going to bug me if I don't remember what it was. I can't remember the guy's name. Balaam. Balaam is the guy's name. Yes, Gene Balaam. Balaam is the guy's name. So yeah, Balaam. That's not Job. So yeah, maybe we'll have a sermon on him sometime. But yeah, not Sunday. So all right. Anybody else got anything for the good of the order? Man, I so appreciate you guys coming out for this and listening to me ramble on for an hour. I appreciate that. I hope you guys are finding a good connection with this and enjoying this. My plan is to be here with you tomorrow night. I hope you'll come out and join me. And hey, Joe, that's nice, man. Good story. Well, Gene, the good attitude and smiling face is all I got to offer. So I appreciate it. And look at this mess here. We're gonna have to get Great Clips back open sometime soon. So yeah. So all right. Anybody else got anything they want to say for the good of the order? Please come back tomorrow night, of course, 8:00. But for goodness sake, log in Sunday morning and see the services. We're gonna have a great time. Just trying to do what we can to remember what's still to try to remember what's still true. And COVID-19 has not changed. So Cool Hand Luke offered me a 5-minute haircut, which I politely declined. I appreciate the offer. I appreciate you thinking of me. I don't want to be bald, so appreciate that. So, Eric, you couldn't be more welcome, buddy. All right, anybody else got anything for the good of the order here tonight? Anybody want to say before we log out? Thanks, Anna Kay. Appreciate you guys coming out. Anybody? I got to go home. I got a cupcake I got to go eat. Thanks, April. You have a good night too. Just a hugs to all, Teresa. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks, Trina. Well, let's see. It seems to be there's always a sign off that I always say one final piece of advice. And I want you all to go do it. Ready? Everybody say it. What am I going to tell you to do? And you better all do it too. What is it? Friends, I don't share cupcakes, Joe. You know better than that. Ready? Go wash your hands. Have a great night, everybody.